guys, how's it going? So I just picked this up today. It is a Squier Classic Vibe 60s P bass. So I wanted to play on it and just kind of share it with you guys. But I'm having to do this from home instead of the car where I normally do it. So I'm assuming that the quality may not be quite as high. So just let me know in the comments if you're having any issues, and just come say hey. Let me know that this is working, and let me know if the bass is distorting or anything like that, because I want you to hear how this bass sounds. So first of all, this is the Classic Vibe 60s P bass. I know it's not a U bass. It's a little bit bigger than a U bass, but just bear with me. I'll switch over to a U bass soon. As you can see, I've got, let me see if I can point in the right direction. No, I can't. I've got one over there and some off screen over to my right. So anyway, the reason I got this bass was because I have a 70s Classic Vibe Jazz, and they did a really good job. It nails the sound that the 70s basses had. So if I had a choice of which P bass I'd want and which jazz bass I want, now I've basically have them, only the Squier versions. So this is the 60s P bass because I really like that Motown sound. So James Jamerson played on a bass that was very much like this one. It had pickup covers on it, which I'm debating getting some, although I don't think I want to put holes in it. So we'll see. But right now it's just so nice looking. I don't think I want to do that. But I will be putting flat wound strings on it. Right now it has round wounds. It's got pretty good action. It's pretty low, so it's pretty easy to slap. And pretty easy to pluck as well. Maybe a little bit of buzz on certain frets, but I don't really mind it. It's not too bad. So I might play a few little Motown grooves to see if it gets that vibe already, even without having flat wounds on it. Yeah, so it's got a good little kind of Motown sound. Let's see. But it's really got the look is what I like about it the most. So what do you guys think about this bass? Are you sad that I have a full scale bass and not a U bass on today currently? I will be changing over to that in a minute. But the other things I like about this is just that sunburst look with the tortoiseshell pick guard. I've been kind of waiting to find one of these used for a while, and I finally did. So let me know what you think of it. I'm going to play a couple more things on it and then probably switch over to the U bass afterwards. But come say hi and just let me know if you can hear everything clearly, if I'm too quiet or too loud, if the bass is coming through clearly or coming through too loud. Just let me know. All right, so I'm just going to do some bass stuff for a minute. So what do you guys think of this bass? Does it have that classic sound, or is it kind of missing the mark? Let me know in the comments. This is with the tone rolled off. That's with it all the way more to treble. This is with it more toward the bass end. So that's just a little bit of. Actually, can you guys name that song in the chat? Let me know if you're familiar with that one. And here it is with the treble all the way on, so I'm going to get more buzz here. Does anybody know that one? Oh, well. So yeah, this is my classic vibe P bass. So if you have any questions about it, let me know in the comments. And if not, I'm probably going to switch over to U-bass soon. All right, and I'm just going to play Green Tea on this before I switch over, and then I'm going to switch over to U-bass. All right, guys, what do you think of this bass? Do you like the way it looks? Do you like the way it sounds? Just let me know in the comments below, and I will respond to you. Also, if you could, just say something in the chat so that I know it's working. I know there's only 1 or 2 people kind of on right now, but let me know in the chat. Is everything working? Please give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. Is the volume too quiet? Is it too loud? Anyway, any feedback, and I appreciate it. And I'll get on to a U-bass at this point. Let me move this over, and then I'll grab that, and I'll be ready. Okay. So I'm going to grab the U-bass that has the flat wound strings now. This is my trusty little Journeyman. Are you guys familiar with the Kala Journeyman? It's a good little U-bass. All right. starting to feel like maybe the comments aren't working. So just let me know if I'm wrong and they are working. I would appreciate that. Thank you very much. And let me know if there's something you want to hear me play. If you have any questions about just any of the things, the bass that I played earlier, if you want me to pull that back later, just let me know. Turn a little bit of bass down, a little bit more treble up, volume down total. All right, so now we're back to the U bass. All right. So if there's anything you'd like to hear, just let me know. But I know last time we were talking about jazz walking lines. We've talked about blues walking lines before. So I think, why don't we talk about funk a little bit? So F-U-N-K, funk bass lines. So times with funk, we can jam on like one chord. We can move around. It's whichever. But let's talk about one chord grooves first. So the first thing with funk is, as long as you have a solid foundation of where beat one is, you can kind of do a lot of things. Although you may want to lock in with the drummer, you may want to do a lot of other things. But usually beat one you hit at least on the first measure. So like, let's just make up a funk groove. So that's a really basic one. You can see I'm hitting beat one. Sometimes drummers will give you two hits at the beginning, like boom, boom. So if they give you that, you can hit two beats at the beginning. And then you can kind of syncopate the rest of it as long as you have a solid piece of the groove. So what do I mean by syncopating? Well, basically syncopating is just hiding strong beats. So you're going to play the first beat strong, beat one, and then you might hide the beat for the rest of the groove. So like, let's say you hit one and then you hit nothing but ands after that. So I'm hitting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, or maybe the groove has that double hit at the beginning. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So that's an example of syncopation. We're not hitting on the downbeats, we're hitting on the upbeats. Bum bump 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 bum bum bump bump bump. So just syncopating throughout, but not at the beginning. So that's how we can make funk interesting, is we have a combination of notes that hit on the beat and hit off the beat. Okay. So we can start with 8 notes grooves, and then we can work up to 16th note grooves. So an 8th note groove is using 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and not hitting any notes that are in between that. So that was that example we just gave. And by the way, I'm kind of using little pentatonic shapes, these box shapes. So if you know your minor pentatonic scale, let's just do today so you can kind of see the whole thing. You basically just be playing a 5th fret on the E string. And then if we want to, we can throw in the 8th fret with our pinky on the same string. Then we go on to the A string, play the 5th fret, then the 7th fret. Notice which I'm using, kind of creating a box here. And then we play the 5th fret and the 7th fret on the D string as well. So I'm not really this note as much, so I'm really just using my pointer finger and my ring finger to play here. So So you can tell I'm kind of hitting the first couple notes would be what the bass drum's doing. So if a drummer's playing along, they might be playing boom, boom, cut, boom, cut, something like that. That's a really, really lame groove, but boom, boom, cut, boom, cut, boom, boom, cut, boom, cut. So what we need to hear is the booms are the bass notes. Boom, 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 boom. 1 and 2 and 4. 1 and 2 and 4. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and. So it's like that's where the bass drum's hitting. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So as long as we're hitting those, we're locking with the drummer and creating that groove. 2 and 3 and 4. So I'm making sure that no matter what I'm playing, I'm hitting what the bass drum is doing. If it's a simple groove like that, sometimes the drummer might vary it up a little bit, change things up. In that case, you don't want to lock in exactly with them necessarily, but you want to hit the first couple with them and maybe one of the ones later on just to get some kind of solidity. Okay. So let's see, 1 and 2 and 3 and. So that's the important one. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Right. See how I'm varying it up, but I'm keeping those bass drums consistent. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and oops, I missed it that time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 3 and 4 and. So one thing I can do is I can keep it kind of busy so that I know I'll hit the and after beat 3. And then kind of talk about techniques that I'm throwing into this funk groove to make it a little bit more lively as well. So I'm hitting the first 2 beats, 1 and, first 2 eighth notes. And I'm thinking in 16th notes, 1 and 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, that kind of thing. But I'm also adding some ghost notes. Sometimes I'm just hitting where the snare would hit, which beats 2 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. But we don't really have to do that because the drummer is already doing that part of it. So we don't really have to like accent beats 2 and 4, but we can if we want to. Okay, so that gives a little bit of foundation. It might be hard to hit that and every single time, but if you just remember to every now and then, you can kind of have some freedom within that groove and it'll still sound like you're playing in the pocket. So once again, most important thing, lock in with the kick drum, at least on the first couple beats. And I was given that example of a groove where the bass drum's hitting 1 and 2 and 3 and. So 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4 and. That's the groove I'm kind of playing along with. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1. So, and then the notes I'm using come from that minor pentatonic shape, but I'm really just doing 5th frets and 7th frets. So do you guys have any questions? I'm really starting to feel like this chat is not working. So please let me know. If you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. And just let me know if there's something you want to hear on the U-Bass or on the Classic Vibe 60s P-Bass. Just let me know. And my cat will wander around in the background as we do this. All right. Who knows? Maybe she'll even try to hop up here. I hope not. I don't care. Let's see if she does. Nope. She's going to sniff my foot instead. Nope, there she is. Okay. So guys, this is Melanie. Melanie Cornbread. She's coming to say hey. All right. Kind of makes it hard for me to show y'all what's going on, but there you go. Oh, like cats. Okay. All right. Well, we have a little interruption there. All right. So she's probably going to hang out here. What you'll notice, I guess I should give a lesson on how to play with a cat in your lap. Just be careful. She might try to bite you or claw at you. Okay. But once again, with those funk grooves, it's really just like hitting beat 1 is super important. And then hitting ands and just experiment with syncopation. So you can start with just hitting beat 1 and then hitting everything else as the and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So you're going back and forth between being on the downbeat and being on the upbeat. And then once you get comfortable with that, you can try adding some 16th notes into the groove, right? Or you can just add the other 8th notes in. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So all I'm doing there is, once again, it's just 5th fret and 7th fret notes, just keeping this little box shape. 5th fret on the E string, then 5th and 7th on the A string, 5th and 7th on the G string. Just kind of going back and forth between them. Right? So that's the 8th notes. Then we can try adding 16th notes in. So those will sound like 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1. I'm just trying to add ones in there just to give you the idea. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 3E and a 1E and a 2E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. Kitty, what are you doing? Isn't it wave? Okay. Well, she's being funny. I'm going to grab her by the foot. Okay. But you kind of get the idea. So you have something grounding you for the drums and the bass to lock in, mainly beat 1. If it's a groove that has 1 and, then you hit 1 and, and then you kind of go from there. And then after that, you're just kind of experimenting with the space that's in between and playing what kind of matches along with the drums. So a second ago, we were going with this drum beat. One and 2 and a 3 and 4 and 1 and. I'm trying to play it differently so you can hear the difference between where the bass drum would be hitting and where the other ones would be. So the bass drum's going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And. Okay, so Todd says, on this bass, you normally rest your wrist on top of the bass to play the E string. So I'm kind of like, my hand is kind of hovering. I don't rest my thumb on the top, but yeah, my wrist is kind of up here. And I try to not like drive it into there. I try to just let it lightly rest. And sometimes the strap helps with that. Hopefully that helps a little bit. That's okay. There's not really much of a topic to this. This is just a live stream. So this one's just kind of a general live stream. So if you have questions, we can pull off topic and start talking about technique. If you have questions about anything else, just let me know. And then I'll try to incorporate it sort of into the funk groove lesson. But yes, you're right. I'm kind of resting it on here. And normally I wouldn't have the bass sitting this high. I'd probably have it sitting more like that. And then the strap is holding it in place. So that makes things a little bit easier. And then, yes, my arm is resting, but rest lightly. Don't put all the weight of your arm on there, or you might just get like an indentation on your arm. And, if you're playing like that, you're pulling the tendons through that pressure, and it can cause a little bit of wrist issues if you play for a long time over time. So like it won't happen right away, but you might notice it after weeks or months of playing, right? Okay. So that being said, yes. So when I'm playing the E string, my thumb comes up a little bit. And then when I play the other strings, my thumb kind of rests on the E string to give me a little bit extra support. Some people like putting their thumb against the body of the bass. Sometimes I might do that, but it's not the top. It's not like this. because we don't want that stretch between our thumb and our finger while we're playing. Like we don't want it to be that big of a stretch. Small stretch is fine. So if you want to, you can kind of like use that as a place to put your thumb. And then when you're playing any other string but the E string, your thumb can rest on the E string, and you get a built-in muting technique, right? Because if your thumb is on the E string while you're playing the other strings, and I'm not saying I always do that, but it's one way to help mute. And you can anchor your thumb while you're playing the other 3 strings. And there's some people that might even do the floating thumb thing where, whoops, please don't fall, Kitty. Okay, where you might do this kind of thing where you mute the strings as you go down. But it's kind of like to each their own. It just depends on if you're trying to mute the strings or not. Sorry, I know this cat is distracting. Is your foot clean yet? No? Okay. But yeah, so that's kind of the idea. So I have the strap to where it sits like it would on my leg, but it's kind of a little bit supported by the shoulder too. Like it would sit a lot lower. So it's a little bit different than an electric bass in that sense. I think a lot of people try to have the electric bass to where when you're sitting and you're standing, it's basically the same thing. I'm doing the best I can here with the U-bass, but it's not an exact science there. Let's see. How's the intonation on the fretted U-bass? I found the stretchy strings shift notes so often that I'm really glad I got a fretless. Okay. It definitely depends on the model you get. I think on the less expensive ones, there's definitely a bigger intonation issue as you go further up the neck. This one, there's a little bit. I'm just being honest. If I play the 12th fret harmonic and then play the note, you'll kind of get an idea of how off it is. It's a little bit sharp, but it's not terrible. It's not really that bad at all. You know, it's just not too bad at all. So at some point you should fall asleep. Anyway, yeah. So that's kind of the idea on that. As far as the polyurethane strings, it kind of just depends on how the setup is, and you do have to be very careful about how hard you push down on those, because if you push down really hard, you'll make the note go sharp. If you push down too light, you'll get buzz. So you have to find that right in the middle of that. Man, she's knocked up a bunch of cat hair. Anyway, yeah, that's kind of what I found is some of the U-basses have better intonation than others, and some of the cheaper ones are more likely to have a little bit of intonation issues. Yeah. All right. Hello. So if you have any questions, yeah, just let me know. I was kind of just going over funk grooves just out of like, I was doing walking lines last time, so what could I do? But basically the idea, once again, you lock in with the drums on beat 1. If they're hitting 1 and, you can hit 1 and then you're almost like free to do your own thing as long as it doesn't clash with the drums. So if the drums were going like, the bass drum once again was going 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 1 and 2 and. So really the most important part to lock in on would be the 1 and. But if you could get that and to lock into 1 and 2, 3 and, then that would be good too. And then I'm just adding notes at the end. So that is not an important thing to lock in necessarily with the drums. You want to be playing in time. So in that sense, you do want to lock in with the drums. But just having that will probably keep the song sounding like it's grooving. Regardless of what you're doing. Now, I wouldn't recommend playing that busy all the time underneath somebody, right? But if you get a solo, you can keep solo sounding like it's grooving by just having that boom, boom happening every time. And if you miss it every now and then, it's fine. Like if you want to do a phrase that's too long to have that work and do something like that, then that's fine. And so all I'm doing here really, there's a kind of a variety of things that are happening. I'm combining eighth notes with some 16th note hammer-ons. So I'll like hit a 5th fret note and then I'll hammer on to the 7th fret, which means my right hand's not plucking again. That's why I move my hand away so you can see that. But my left hand is just coming down with enough force to get another note to come out. If I mute the string, you can kind of hear I'm hitting it hard enough for it to sound like that. And that's kind of like a physics thing. Use your hand kind of like a lever rather than thinking of it as squeezing real tight or something to get the note to come out. So if I'm holding a note down with my pointer finger, almost like I'm pinching the note, then I'm kind of just using my wrist a little bit more than just my finger to get a little bit of extra momentum, if that makes sense. So it's not just the finger motion, it's kind of like a little bit of arm twist kind of helps a little bit there. So and you can practice doing slow hammer-ons as well as fast ones. So these are 16th notes that are created by the hammer-on, right? But then you could also do an 8th note. Right, 1 and, I don't know, I think I did quarter notes there. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But then you could do 16th notes too. 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. They're a little bit quicker, right? And then I was adding some slides in to make it fun. But that was kind of breaking this little box shape. So that's a little bit more advanced. You need to kind of know I was doing kind of the blues scale and then going up to the second octave. So you kind of have to know the notes or the shape to make that work out. So it's the root, the flat third, the fourth, the fifth. You can throw in the flat fifth if you want to make it the blues scale. And then the seventh and the octave. So those are the scale degrees. If you were playing like a minor scale, you'd be playing the first note of the minor scale, the third note of the minor scale, and then the fourth note and fifth note, the seventh note, and the eighth note. So that's a pentatonic scale derived from the minor scale. If you're not familiar with a minor scale, I'm not going to go over it too much here because I have a course that's for free on YouTube that you can go through and find where I talk about scales and arpeggios, and that'll help with that. But anyway, that's kind of a cool thing you can do with funk to keep the groove, even if you're soloing or just trying to play busy, right? Just if the groove is that, boom, boom, where the drums are giving you that, boom, boom, cut, ticka, boom, cut, ticka, boom, boom, cut, ticka, boom, cut, ticka, right? So you could do that, boom, boom, cut, ticka, boom, cut, ticka, boom, boom, cut, ticka, boom, cut, ticka, right? You don't have to line up with everything, but the boom, boom will help make it all groove. There's one other technique that I kind of haven't mentioned today yet, and that's ghost notes. So what I do there is I touch the strings lightly, not like pushing down, just you're touching the strings. They're not actually hitting the frets. They're just being muted so that if you were to pluck each one, you'd get that sound instead of a note ringing out, right? Instead of a note ringing out, you're getting, and I usually do at least multiple points of contact, because if you only do one point of contact, like you're just touching really lightly, if you do it in certain places, you might get a harmonic, and that's not what we want. So if you touch it in at least two places, it'll mute the harmonic, right? And if you use all four, it'll really mute it. Right, so you're getting this like percussive sound. So you can practice doing that by just going like. Right, so you got just variations. Practice doing like index, middle, with different rhythms. Right, and on the polyurethane strings, you have to hit lighter. So just make sure that you're hitting a little bit lighter than that. But hopefully that helps a little bit. So let me check these comments here. Sam says, any recommendations on replacing poly strings with more normal ones? My U-bass is a cheap Bat King. Okay. And the rubber strings make me always want to pick up one of my other basses. I understand that. So I think I have, if it's not a Bat King, it was like, you know how they like relabel things? I tried to put metal strings on this one. Whoa. And you know, you're talking about you don't pick it up very often. Well, here's an example of not picking it up very often. I guess I haven't touched this in months. There are spider webs all over it. Now my cat is interested in the spider webs. Okay. It's okay, Katie. Okay. Sorry for the interruption and distraction. I had no clue. But anyway, I put flat wound strings on it, and it did cause the action to raise up a little bit. It didn't break the bass or anything, but it's not really that much fun to play. For me, the problem with this bass though wasn't really that, because it's a fretless, you know, and it's fine, but that rattle is one of the problems, and just it never really the pickup never really worked that well. So I'd have to do a lot of work to get that one to be more playable, but it really didn't have to do with the strings. However, putting those metal strings on there, and these are metal with a nylon core. So these are the flat wound strings. Kala makes flat wound strings. I also have them on here. So these are flat wound metal strings. Not sure if you can see it clearly. Oh, I guess my cat's going to try to attack everything today. Yeah. And I believe you probably, if you have a Bat King one, you probably have one that looks like that. Possibly you said it was fretless earlier, I think. So anyway, yeah, I don't recommend it if they don't have the truss rod. I went ahead and did it on that one anyway and didn't have too many issues. It might have worked the neck a little. So just know that I don't recommend it for that reason. But yeah, if I were you, I might get one of the Kalas or just any other brand that has a truss rod, so that if you have any issues with the neck, you can do a truss rod adjustment. I haven't had any issues with this bass. Only thing I had to do to make the flat wounds fit, this one had round wounds on it before. It never had the polyurethane. But I had to file the nut, this groove underneath just the E string mainly, to make it wide enough for it to sit there. So that was the main thing I had to do. Okay, so hopefully that helps a little bit. And I have other videos on this too. If you go through the channel and probably type in strings, you'll probably get a whole bunch of different videos about the strings and the advantages to certain ones and disadvantages to others. So I think I have one where I compare the flat wounds, the round wounds, and the polyurethane. So if you find that video, it's an old video at this point, like 4 or 5 years old, maybe at least 5. So just check it out and see if it answers your questions. If it doesn't, feel free to ask me on the comments on that video or on here, and I'll try to get back to you. Okay, so KDB says, hi, I play a bit of bass and uke. Do you think it would be easier to pick up the U bass instead of normal bass? When I play bass, it sounds quite dull. I'm not sure about it sounding quite dull. When you play bass or when you play U bass? I do need to ask that for clarification, because if you're playing the polyurethane strings, they are going to have a more muted sound, if that's what you're talking about. But if you're talking about your playing itself, I'm not sure. I think both are great. Obviously, I play both. I started the video off. I know a lot of you guys missed that part with the Classic Vibe 60s P bass. That's a full-scale electric bass that I got because it has that Motown sound to it. So you can check that out later when the live goes up and hear that. Or if you want, I can pull that back out here in a little bit. But I probably will. I just don't want to make my cat get up right now. She looks so cozy. Okay. I kind of recommend both because I like playing everything. If you're used to the ukulele, your fingers won't have to stretch as much on a U bass. But if you play the full scale electric bass, you'll get a different amount of like sustain out of the notes that you might like. And you just have to be able to stretch your fingers a little bit more. And if you do the polyurethane strings, you play really lightly in comparison to how you pluck on the full scale electric. That makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna read your other comment, and then I'm gonna get to the other guys' comments. Let's see if you had a response to that. When I play bass, I think I don't have enough strength in my left arm to press the strings yet. It could be that in that sense. The U bass with the polyurethane strings, it's a lot easier to push the notes down. The other thing is, I don't know if you know this from ukulele already, but I'm just gonna reiterate it. If you already know it, forgive me. But if you're playing in the middle of the fret or closer to this side of the fret rather than further back, you don't have to push down nearly as hard. So if I were playing back here, that amount of pressure would buzz. But if I use the same amount of pressure up here, I get a clear note out. So just either being in the middle or being slightly closer to this side, the actual fret that you're pushing down, then that way you don't have to push down as hard. So you might notice when you're playing electric bass, because you're not stretching your fingers quite far enough, which might mean you just need to pivot a little, not really stretch them like this, but stretch them like just have your thumb, have the notes pivot around your thumb just a little bit. You might find that you can play with a lot less buzz and it won't take as much strength to play. But if you still find it takes too much strength, try the polyurethane strings on the U-bass. Or if you want to, you can do the round wounds. I just think you still have to push down a decent bit on the round wounds and the flat wounds, the metal strings. So that's up to you on that. But hopefully that helps a little bit. It gives you some stuff to try at least. Okay, so we got Yosemite Blam. That's a funny name. I literally just got a Squier 60 Classic Vibe. Me too. That's so cool. I literally got mine today. It's over there in the corner. Like I said, I played it earlier in the video. Right now, people are asking a lot of U-bass questions, but I'll probably get it back out. I ended up getting it. Let's see. You got the Sonic Blue color. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I looked at that one, I think. But I didn't want to buy a brand new one, so I was looking for a used one. And I was really looking in the color that I got. I got the sunburst kind of classic look, kind of like James Jamerson's bass. That was the whole point, is I wanted it to sound like that and kind of look like that. Okay. So yeah, and I've been really impressed with Squier as well. I also have the Classic Vibe 70s Jazz. So as far as jazz bass and precision bass, if you're a Fender person, anyone on here that plays U-bass and electric bass or just plays electric bass, this is some kind of interesting information. To me, I found the sounds that I like the best from the music that I like playing and listening to the most come from the 70s jazz bass and the 60s P bass. So I didn't want a Classic Vibe 70s P bass because it has a very different tone from the 60s one, which is kind of strange. And then same with the jazz. The 70s jazz bass has a lot more bite to it, which I want when I'm playing that bass, but I don't want that when I'm playing the P bass. So it's kind of interesting. In my perfect world, now I have them. I have the 70s Classic Vibe Jazz and the 60s Classic Vibe P bass. So yeah, those are fun. All right, if you got any more questions, let me know. I'm kind of just throwing in this little funk lesson in between, just answering your questions. That's really what this live stream is about more than anything, is just answering questions that you do have. But yeah, as far as Yosemite, if you want, I can switch back over to that in a minute. I'm going to try to get through this little funk lesson, and then I can do some of that on there too. But yeah, with the flat wound strings, I don't really know if I see it being easier, like much easier. It's a little easier to push down, I guess, with the metal strings than on a full scale electric bass, but not too much. Okay. So anyway, back to this. We have like different techniques you can throw in, different rhythms you can throw in. If you are starting to play funk, I think the first thing I would do is just lock in with whatever the kick drum is giving you if you're playing with the drummer. So that's why I was saying a good example is like someone might be going boom, boom, cut, ticka, ticka, boom, cut, ticka. And that's a very like 90s sounding beat. It's not really super funky, but you kind of get the idea. Point is, they're usually going to be hitting beat one, either every measure or at least on the first measure if it's a 2-measure pattern. But let's just say it's a 1-measure pattern. And if you listen to a lot of like James Brown, right? Oh, that's the wrong key. You'll notice that beat 1 is in both of those measures, even though it's a 2-measure pattern. One, 1, 2, 3. I can't count in 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't even count to 4 while I'm playing that groove, apparently. But yeah, you get the idea. Like the rest of it's pretty syncopated. But I'm assuming that the bass drum's also hitting these boom, 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 boom. At least some of those notes too. And that's part of locking in with the groove. But notice the main thing was just there's a beat 1. And that's what makes a groove so hard. It's just that beat 1. So I almost feel like it's not really the best advice, but you can almost get away with murder in between. When I say, I shouldn't use that word. You can almost get away with anything in between those notes, right? Right? You can get away with a lot of stuff as long as you're locking in with the drummer for part of that groove. Okay, and then the other example I was giving was 1 and being the hits. 2, 3, 4. So you start there. Right? So that's a good place. Sorry, I can't talk and do it apparently, but that's a good place to start. It's just having that groove and then trying to add things in. Simple things first. Those are just quarter notes. Different set of them, different pitches, but right. It kind of sounds more like blues if you do that, but then you can add instead of the quarter notes, why don't you try adding the upbeats is a good second thing to do. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Because then it kind of gives you that feeling like you're on the downbeats, then you're on the upbeat, then you're back to the downbeat, but then you're kind of floating around, but then you're grounded. So that's kind of the thing, is like you're grounded, you're floating away, but you never float away too far. And then you can add stuff in as you go. Okay, and then what I'm adding in there, I think we already talked about the hammer-ons that happen sometimes. And then the ghost notes was what I was starting to talk about for a minute. Right? So the ghost notes are just where you touch the strings lightly, but you don't push down an actual fret. And then you pluck like normal and you get more of a percussive sound. And like I said, if you only touch down in one place, you've got to be careful or you get a harmonic. But if you touch down with like multiple fingers, it'll sound more muted. It's kind of like you're drumming by plucking. And that's a rake technique. I don't know if we're doing that in this particular groove, but you got the idea. So I really just want to give you those kind of ideas. So if you're trying to jam with somebody and you're trying to do something sort of funky, then just make sure beat 1's there. And then try other things in between. Start simple, work your way to being kind of all over the place. Just kind of have fun with it. And then learn some other people's funk lines. The one I was playing earlier, that's a James Brown groove. That's Super Bad. So if you find the song Super Bad, that one's got that in it. And then you can learn a whole bunch of other things, and just imitating other people's a great way to go. That's got a lot of syncopation in it. Like, let's see what the rhythms actually are. So let's see. So let's see. 1E and a 2E and so 1, 2 and the and is a ghost note, I think. 1, 2 so 1, 2E and da, da, da. So 1, 1E and a 2E and so 1E and a 2E and a 4 and let's see, 1E. Yeah, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and E and da, 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 da. Let's see. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and I think it's a E and then an on the next one. I guess it's 4E at the end, 4E. But anyway, you get the idea. There's a lot of syncopation going on there, but it always comes back on beat 1. And so it's almost like if you're making up a groove, start by hitting, and also note that I'm hitting the root of the chord on beat 1. I'm not hitting some other chord tone. I'm hitting the root on beat 1. So if we're in the key of A, I'm hitting an A on beat 1. Now you can play funk where you have different chords. It's not all just based around one chord necessarily. So then you just take the same idea that we had and just make sure that the root of whatever chord that you're on goes to these other, gets moved around. So like let's say, sorry, that was really bad. Make sure the root of the chord that you're on is what you're playing on beat 1. So if the chord progression is like D going up to F, then we have I'm doing like an E half diminished. Don't worry about that. Just E of some sort. And then you're back to D. Okay. So then you're moving your shape around. Right? But you're taking that same idea of just messing around with the rhythm, making sure to hit the root on beat 1, working in some syncopations that make sense with whatever drum beat's being played. So don't do anything too out there. But yeah, hopefully that helps a little bit. Okay, I'm going to read the comments and see what else is going on over here. We've got Sam saying, I have round wounds on a full-size acoustic bass. The sound is brighter. Yeah, you get a lot of fret buzz out of it. So that was one thing that I said when I was on my comparison video, is if you want as little string noise as possible, go with the flat wounds. If you want as much string noise as possible, go with the round wounds, because you will get that shh kind of sound. And as the strings get older, you have less of that, but you also lose the brightness and a little bit of the resonance too. Not a lot of it, but a little bit of it. Okay. The cat is trying to take over my arms. I don't think she wants me to be playing the bass while she's trying to sleep. Anyway, whoop, there we go. Now she's attacking. So yeah, if you're trying to play bass when you have a cat, sometimes you can't. You just have to give up. Okay, stop attacking me. You decided to sit up here. You don't need to attack me. Okay. This is what I put up with. She's real sweet sometimes, and then all of a sudden she decides to be a little demon every now and then. Okay. So that being said, that's a basic little funk lesson. I hope y'all kind of enjoyed that. I'm going to switch back over, much to my cat will be really annoyed when I make her get up. But I'm going to switch back to the 60s classic vibe P-Bass, just because it's an exciting thing for me, because I've been looking for one of these for a while, and one came up on Craigslist that was just at a good price that I couldn't pass up. Okay. She's going to try to jump back up while I get the bass. Watch this. Nope. She's going to stay on the box. Okay. Let me turn this off while I unplug it and plug it back in. So this is the bass that I got today. And when I played it earlier at the beginning of the live stream, that's really the first little bit I was playing it. I think I plugged it in 5 minutes before that. But yeah, you can also, of course, play funk on a full-size bass. Ooh, I'm getting a lot of buzz. That note wasn't buzzing that much before. I might need to do some sort of adjustment. Okay. Okay, so you might notice this does have round wound strings on it. And you notice that string noise, it's there, but it's not super loud. That's because of the type of pickups. So in general, the U-Bass has a piezo pickup, and it picks it up through the vibration against the bridge, right? It's like a solid thing picking up the vibration through the solid bridge over there. And that's kind of how that pickup works. And then, of course, these are magnetic pickups. So what they do is they pick up through the air the string vibration. So the string vibrates, and those little magnets on top of the pickups kind of convert that into sound somehow, which is pretty crazy. But because of that, you don't hear the string noise anywhere near as much as you would there, because that string noise causes I don't know, just the vibration gets picked up more through the solid on that. The reason you'd still hear it on a full-size acoustic electric bass guitar, if you have round wounds on there, is because it still has that piezo style pickup like the U-bass does. So yeah, so a lot of times trading that out for flat wounds might be a good idea if you can, if there are flat wounds that are that scale and that fit that bass. However, the round wounds seem to project louder. So acoustically, when you're playing, the round wounds have a little more resonance, and they're a little bit clearer when you're playing. They sound less muted. However, at some point, I'm going to put flat wounds on this bass as well, because the sound I'm looking for, that Motown sound, is really a more muted sound. So I don't want them to ring out like this. So for now, if I want to imitate it, I can put my hand back here and mute with my palm. But then my thumb will get tired. We'll see. And I don't like it that muted either. I kind of like a little bit less muting than that. So here's not muted at all. Okay, and then I can roll the treble off. Okay, so Yosemite, you're saying, what does the sponge at the bridge do? Is that strictly for flats? I think Jamerson would have had that and other players at that time. Yeah, so what I was just saying a second ago about putting my hand back here, that's what the sponge does. So it mutes the string slightly. So instead of sounding like this, where it rings out, you could put like your hand down here. See how it mutes it? Well, the reason Jamerson has that sponge there is because he doesn't want to play with his thumb the whole time, right? So instead of doing that, he has the sponge underneath. I think I actually have a piece of sponge. Let me see if it's tall enough to work. It's random that it's there. I guess the cat knocked it off of the table. But if I put a piece of sponge under here, let's see what the difference sounds like. Maybe we can tell. So here's with the sponge. Here's without the sponge. Let's try it on all the strings, right? So here's all the strings. You get that bright sound. Well, what if we don't want it to be that bright? Let's put the sponge underneath, and as long as it's touching all the strings, see how it's a little bit more muted? That's a little more muted than I want it to be. I'd probably do a smaller piece of sponge or have it further back like this, so it doesn't mute them quite as much. Versus without the sponge, it's really bright and the notes ring out and you may not want it to. So it takes a little bit of that brightness away, and that's really what the sponge is for. But yeah, that's a good point. He has those there for that reason. So it makes it sound a little bit more like a lot of upright basses, because a lot of upright basses don't have as much sustain, especially when they were mic'd instead of having a pickup. So the sustain would decay really quickly, whereas these basses, if you play a note, that note will ring out for a long time. And if you're having to cut it short every time, or if you're having to mute, which you can mute multiple different ways, right? You can use the palm of your hand back there on the top of the strings, much like the sponge was doing. Or you can mute with the other hand, the left hand, by you push a note down and then you have a finger sitting lightly in front of the fret, in front of it. It's just, then that limits how fast you can play with this hand. It's harder to be accurate with that kind of muting versus not muted. So that's the reason for the sponge. I think I actually did use the sponge on a U-bass for a while, which is why it was handy around here. But then the cat got to it and ended up on the floor, I guess. But there you go. So yes, it helps limit the buzz. It also helps limit the bright tones. So it's to imitate kind of upright and to help it fit in the mix better. You don't want the bass to kind of like stand out so much in the mix on those Motown songs to where it overshadows anything else that's going on. So yeah, that's kind of the reason for that sponge. Okay. So then Sam says, P.S. if you had a wheelie chair, you wouldn't need to disturb the cat when you change bass. Yes, but I do have a wheelie chair. I sit on a cajon instead so that I can drum if I want to. And the wheelie chair has arms. So the problem with that is the bass will bump the arms. So you're right. I do have a wheelie chair, and that is the case. But this looks better for the video. And really, when I'm doing the video, it's not about disturbing the cat. So as much as she thinks it is, everything is about her over here. So yeah, so she gets a little bit annoyed, but you know, it's okay. We're doing the live stream. But yeah, I think this bass sounds great. I'm looking forward to getting flat wounds on it too, because I basically so I play in a wedding band a lot of the time. So I wanted a bass for that kind of stuff, and then I wanted a bass for the 70s kind of sounds. So like if I'm trying to play something like Earth, Wind and Fire, or just a variety of other bands, like they're not all coming to mind right now, but there was something, I think I was playing Low Down on it, and it just had the right tone, because like actually this one might have the right tone. And then there were just some other things where it was just like, okay, the 70s sound is what I want out of that bass. It's brighter. And then with this one, I'm wanting it to have the other tone, although I kind of like the way these round wound strings sound on it. And I don't think they're new at all, because I do see some stuff on them that would signify they've got a little bit of wear on them. They're not brand new. The other guy did play them a lot. Ew. Apparently didn't wash his hands when he played them. Anyway, don't worry about that. That's just one fret. There's some little, ugh. Okay, I might have to clean these strings, or just go ahead and replace them. But you get the idea. So the reason that he sold it to me as cheap as he did was I had one little blemish on there, and I think I can handle that being there. That doesn't bug me too much. My arm's going kind of near there anyway. Okay, so Yosemite says, was the J bass the only electric you had before? At least currently. I know you have all the U basses and the upright. Okay, so no, I have a Schecter 5-string over there as well. I have a 6-string Ibanez that's out of commission right now. For a while, I had a 6-string fretless, but I ended up giving that to a student because it needed a repair, and I just realized I wasn't getting the repair done. So I just said, if you fix it, you can have it. And and then I had a Warrior 6-string, but the width of that neck caused me to put just a slight bit more bend on the wrist in order to play it. And over time, that really messed up my wrist, so I had to get rid of that one. But yeah, and way before that, I had a fretless Squier that looked like Jocko's bass. This was before the Classic Vibe series even came out, so they didn't call it a Classic Vibe or anything, but it was basically meant to be like Jocko's bass if it was a Squier. So I had that one as well. And then before that, I had a 5-string Ibanez. And then at some point, I had 2 Yamaha 4-strings that were just like entry-level basses. So the first bass I bought was a Yamaha. And that one broke, but I still have the body of it. I don't have the neck anymore, but I do have the body. because I put stickers on it that were signed by some of my favorite bass players. Like I got a sticker signed by Victor Wooten and put it on there. I got a sticker signed by Les Claypool and put it on there. And so I kept the body, but not anything else. And then do I have any others? I used to have electric upright basses, but I got rid of those. You can see those on the channel if you go all the way back to the beginning of this channel. The first video I had that took off was I was comparing the Stag electric upright bass to the Palatino. They were two kind of entry level ones that were in the $300 to $400 range, or at least you could find them used for that price. And so I was comparing them because I didn't know which one I would buy, and there was no information comparing the two on the internet. So I had to get both of them, and then that was the first video that kind of led to this channel continuing. You know, it was just like, oh, okay, I can get, you know, people are interested in things that I'm doing and reviews and stuff, so I might as well do more of them. Maybe I'll do a full review on this at some point too. Oh, and then I forgot one. I have a so now that I have a P bass and a jazz bass from Squier, I also have a combo where it's the P bass, but it has the J bass pickup back here. And so it's a good sound, but it's not the 60s P bass sound, and it's not the 70s jazz bass sound, but between the two pickups, it's got a variety of tones that neither of these two have. So it's kind of like sort of the best of both worlds, but not as good all the way across. So that's why I felt like getting these two. And that bass I ended up buying when the jazz bass had an issue that put it out of commission for a minute. I had to buy it last minute because the jazz bass's issue happened on a gig. And so like after sound check, I was like, oh, it's shorting out. Well, let me go and fix it. Oops, I messed it up worse. Now I have to go buy a bass. So I ended up buying the other one for that reason. Okay, and then you say, I have one of those too with the preamp. It's out of commission. Need to buy a new pickup and figure out how to wire the preamp. Yeah, so for me, the part that messed up on the fretless 6-string that I had was the 9-volt connector. The little wires that were coming out of that. The 9-volt battery had been in there so long it corroded, kind of sort of blew up and corroded out the wire. And so because of that, it shorted out and then it stopped working. And all I would have had to do probably was replace that little part and possibly anything else that corrosion would have gotten to by going through that wire. But other than that, it would have been fine. So my student did that. And I think all I had to do was replace just the little 9-volt connector, like all the way back, soldering it, you know, at the connection points. And once he did that, it was fine. So the other reason I kind of gave it to him was because he's a big Primus guy. So I wanted him to have a bass that he could play the Primus songs on, where it would sound a little bit more like that. But I've always loved this color combination too. It's not just that it reminds me of James Jamerson's bass, which is totally what it's supposed to, by the way. Let's check this out. If I just buy these little pickup covers and put it on there, and then it looks like he has a little, we think of them as thumb rests, but he's got it down there, I guess, for other options. But that's the bass that this is kind of based on, no pun intended. Forgive me. Here's a better picture of it. So if you see it, yes, it's got a cover over the pickup and over the bridge as well. So these little things right here, I was thinking, like, should I get a pickup cover and a bridge cover? And the sponge would be back here underneath that, so it kind of hides the sponge too. But yeah, this is the bass. This is a 60s P bass, and this is the classic vibe that's meant to emulate that bass. So now I feel like I have the best of both worlds in having this and the 70s jazz. Although since they're Squiers, they both could use a little bit of work. I might bring them to somebody else to do a setup, because I could probably do an okay setup, but they could do something much better, I think. But yeah, the only thing about adding the pickup covers is I'd end up having to drill a hole here and here. And it's just so pretty right now. I don't want to mess it up. I know it's got that ding in it, but it's just not visible from the rest of the bass. So it's like, it's such a nice looking bass. I don't know that I want to do that to it. But yeah, but it would look cool having the pickup covers and having the sponge under there and then having the flat wound strings. So I'm probably just going to leave it like this, although I can't play it the way that Jamerson did, because I watched one video. There's like one video you can find of him online. Maybe there's two, but there's one that comes up of him playing with Marvin Gaye, and they're playing What's Going On? All that stuff. And he's got the pickup covers over it, and when he's playing, he's like anchoring his fingers on the back is what it looks like, and they're on the pickup cover, and they're just sliding down it, and then he's plucking with his pointer finger as he's going, and he's not using the middle finger really at all. And so just thinking about that, like if your hand's gliding along the pickup cover, I don't think it's really a technique I want to get good at, but it was kind of interesting to watch it anyway. It's hard to do with one finger. But that's kind of the idea. What was that? I mean, I have the transcription of the line. I could play it a lot closer, but my memory is not serving me too well. But yeah, I got this so that I could play songs like that in the wedding band. Not necessarily that song, but just the Motown stuff, and have it sound a little bit more legit. So maybe I'll keep you guys updated on when I get flat wound strings for it as well. But I kind of like the way the round wounds are on it too, because the slap tone's pretty nice, to be honest. Yep. So I like that one a lot. And I also like sliding into the 12th fret. That seems to be a sweet spot on here. Cool. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for hanging out. I hope you've enjoyed this. I didn't do a lot of playing on here. I did more chatting, but I love the questions. Y'all had some great questions. So thank you again for hanging out. If you have any other questions, please feel free to leave them as comments. Usually I can get back to them, at least in typing form. And I know sometimes I miss some every now and then, but as long as they're not like so in depth that it requires like a lot of research to be able to comment back to you, I can usually comment back pretty regularly. So I hope you guys have a wonderful week or month. Hopefully I will get back on track with the regular weekly content. Sorry, not weekly. I need to explain that a little bit. I've gone down to trying to do one video a month and one live stream a month. So this is the live stream for the month. I'm pretty far behind on the other videos. I think I'm like 2 or 3 months behind at this point. I'd like to catch up. I'm basically like working a little bit on a Patreon request, which by the way, it's like if you sign up, you get a request, but sometimes it takes a while for me to come up with them. And this is just kind of some true stuff about doing this. For a long time, I did weekly content on here, and it just kind of burned me out. And doing the live streams doesn't burn me out because there's no editing. There's no real, there's not a lot of preparation that goes into it beforehand. So I really like doing this, and it's a lot of fun. But with the other stuff, it's like there's just a lot of other work. I have to tab out everything that's going on. I use Guitar Pro to tab things out. And then I have to practice it to where I can play it without messing it up. And then I have to record it. And then there's a whole lot of editing work, because if I don't play it completely right, I know this is terrible, but every now and then there's a buzzy note or something, I'll go back in and overdub that note. So it's not a ton of overdubs, but every now and then it's just like if one is really bugging me, I'll go and I'll do that. And or if I just, for whatever reason, if I made too hard of an arrangement and can't play it all the way through, sometimes I've done a couple things where I've done it in 3 pieces and then overlapped it as best as I could. And you'll see in the video where there's a little cut where it fades into the other one. And I'm not trying to hide that or anything from you. So just know some of those arrangements I've put out on here are kind of tricky, And it's okay if you're struggling to play them, because there's some where I can't get through the whole thing without stopping, or I can do parts of it. But yeah. Yeah, and there's just something about recording. So Sam's saying, same for overdubbing. Play it fine 10 times by myself and then try to record to show family, and there's always a couple buzzy notes. It's totally like that. And something about that little red light, you'd think that after like years and years of doing it that you get better at it. But for me, I don't know. It just causes anxiety and frustration, and I get frustrated, and then I get tense, and then my playing doesn't sound as natural. And I think everybody's a little bit like this. Like if you go and, not everybody, but a lot of people are like this, where if you go and play in front of somebody, you get a little performance anxiety, and you miss some notes that you wouldn't normally miss, or you accidentally play faster than you were planning on. Or for me, sometimes my hands will sweat, and then my fingers will stick to the strings, and on the polyurethane strings, it'll add a bunch of string noise, and that's really frustrating too. So sometimes when I'm overdubbing, it's because there's like my finger with just enough sweat to go whoop on the string, and it'll make like a, let me see if I can emulate it. Like I've got one that has polyurethane strings on it right here. It's like that sound. Did you hear it for a second? Okay, that finger's not sweaty anymore. There you go. So it'll be like a little like squish sound in there, and it's just a bummer to hear that. And it's like it doesn't happen as often when I'm not recording, because my hands don't sweat when I'm not recording. But it may be something to do with this light up here. I also have a ring light that kind of does create some heat, just being real. But anyway, those are all excuses, and I would like to get back to making videos for you guys more regularly, and I'm hoping that I can even do a couple of extra ones and catch up. But there've been a lot of gigs lately, and I'm just doing good to be doing the live streams. But I appreciate you guys hanging out, and I hope you had a good time. I hope I answered as many questions as I could. I hope I answered everybody's question in the comments. Once again, if you have more, please just leave them below. It can be about the funk playing. It can be about the 60s classic vibe P bass, or it could be about just the U bass and the different types of strings. So just let me know, and I will see you guys next time. Have a wonderful evening, potentially week or month, depending on how long it takes me to put a video out. And then I'll see you guys on the live stream next month. Thanks for hanging out. Take care, guys. Hope you all enjoyed it.